Welcome to the Save Childhood podcast with Jennifer McCarville. Because childhood has changed, but children have not.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Save Childhood podcast.
I'm Jennifer McCarville.
And I'm Nicole Dugan, and it is back to school time.
Woohoo! Woo! I miss the kids.
Me too.
Today we had some children at the school, and this is going to be kind of what we talk about too, but for a play date, the children coming into the school new this year, and it was just so nice to have the outdoor classrooms full of children. And, you know, while we need that break for the summer, everyone does. You know, June, all of the educators are just like, whoa.
Recovering.
Processing, constant input, and being needed constantly for 10 months, 9 months, 10 months, depending on your calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And then July, you kind of start to wake up a little bit like, oh, I could do this next year, and I want to go to that conference, and I'm kind of getting ready. And, you know, then August is the getting it all done because it's time for the children to be back. And it's such a sweet time of year. But the getting ready part, it's a lot of work.
Yes.
And it's a little bit exhausting. And for parents, helping their children get ready for school is, you know, something that they work hard at doing. And so we wanted to give some tips and such.
Yeah.
About that today.
About the transition.
The transition to school.
It's easier for some children than others.
Yeah, sure. And I think we often think that the quieter children have an easier time with it. But, you know, there's just that wiring, that personality for some children where they hold things so close and so tightly. And I'm not saying we need to be overly concerned. I just, you know, I think the children who tend to maybe complain about going or physically fight or, you know, fight you like, I don't want to go, and verbally, and they cry, those tend to, obviously, they're setting off their alarms and they need some extra help. But just, you know, being aware that even those quieter ones might need some of these reassurances and some of these experiences that we're going to chat about.
Right. So we have tips.
Yes, we do. So we're going to start out with tips for parents and what they can do. And then we're going to go on and talk about some of the ways that we do this at our school. So educators might get some tips from that, we hope.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, we'll go from there. But I think that for parents, one of the things that right now, there are so many choices in education. And I don't see that changing or dwindling. I see that possibly expanding even more, and it's overwhelming. So the talk about where children are going to go to school starts very, very early in a calendar year, in a school calendar year, right? I mean, I know at our school, because we are a private school, we have registration in February for new families. Our returning families register in January, and then our new families register starting the 1st of February. And so we're having tours throughout January. Sometimes we'll have one in the fall. Charter schools are already pulling kids out of their lotteries well before we have our registration. And of course, I already think it's insane that we are registering children for the school year in February, for the following school year.
Right.
And, you know, the very first day of February. And when I first started in education, you know, over 30 years ago, we used to register in the private schools after spring break.
Mm-hmm.
So into March, we would start an open registration for the upcoming fall. Well, then, you know, it's been this almost, it's frustrating because it's almost this game that happened where it was like, well, if that school's going to start registering after spring break, we're going to register before spring break. Well, if they're going to register before spring break, we're going to register at the 1st of March. Well, then, and so here we are, and it slowly crept up to the beginning of February. Now, as a member of the board in our school and as the director of the school, there is a lot of planning that needs to take place. And
Right.
on some levels, I really understand why that's the case. And how that's beneficial for financial planning and hiring teachers and, you know, when you're tuition based, securing your facilities, securing what you're going to need. But still, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's early, and for parents, they'll start talking about this early on. They'll start talking about it in October, November. For sure, you're talking about it in November. And all these choices. So the children are hearing this. And a lot of times, those conversations make children very uneasy, because it sounds like the world's overwhelming. We have so many choices. What's going to happen to me? Where am I going to go? So I think one of the first things I want parents and all of us to think about is trying to keep those conversations out of your day-to-day. And you're just sitting at the park for a play date or what have you, and the parents are talking about what school are they going to go to and what do they do at your school and what do they do. And so I think that that's something to just be aware of, because especially with the youngest children, you're talking about, they don't understand the concept of time. They focus on the here and now. They can't even fathom how far away September is, August is. And so it just starts feeling really big.
Right.
I think one of the things in our society is to remember that the children hear that, and it can actually cause them to feel very stressed about what's happening in their lives. So those conversations should be without the children, if at all possible. And then when you decide, and you're happy about that decision, and you feel confident in that decision, and the children get that message and they get that feeling from you, because that energy about where your child will be has to be such a positive thing for the children, for them to really thrive. They're gonna know if you have a lot of angst about it, or etc. And so it's very important that whatever your situation, you are sending a message to the children that is, this is going to be good. It's going to be good.
Yeah. And they'll feed off your energy.
Absolutely will feed off your energy, and you'll feed off your energy. So it's a positive thing for you too, to, rest in, this is the decision we've made. And not that you can't change your decision, but talking to your kids about it constantly is stressful. But you could change your decision. And honestly, if your child is struggling after school starts, I encourage you to really consider changing that situation. But that's not what we're talking about today. So you want to limit the conversation early in the school year about next year. You want to, when the decision is made, be very positive about it, and not talk about it constantly. Because again, it's a long way away.
Right.
And so, when the children are registered in January or February and they're having a change, they have so much of the year left to enjoy. You shouldn't compromise the here and now and finishing the year strong and joyfully and with rich learning and valuing where you are.
Right.
And so you want to be sure that you live out the current year to the fullest. Right. So I think those things are really important. And so we get through that, and now we've got summertime. And there's a little bit of talk about school starting and when that happens. And there are ways you can keep track with the children. You can have a calendar hanging in on your refrigerator where you mark off the days, and you have a sunshine around the day they start. Or you can do a chain that has, paper chain. We've talked about that. Removing each day, keeping track of time for those younger ones. The older ones, of course, are able to keep track of time better by themselves. They have concepts of that. But when you're talking to them, have this gentle, encouraging positivity, and short conversations, short comments like, oh yes, when school starts, it's going to be so great. Oh yes, that's going to be fun. We're looking forward to it.
Right. I was just thinking, even if as it gets closer, if you're talking about it all the time, it might create a sense of
nervousness.
Yeah. Or like, why are we talking about this so much?
Right.
It must be a big deal.
Yeah. And you've invested so much in making a choice for your child, and it's such a beautiful and important thing, and clearly we value that. Yet it's heavy for them to carry.
Right.
And it can cause a lot of nervousness. So you want to do that. You also want to start establishing healthy routines for your day that will complement the school day. So whatever your school day is, as you get closer to school, I would say minimum 3 weeks out. Just not even talking about it. There's a lot of, well, when you go to school, you're going to have to get up early. And, all of those statements instill in the children a dislike for school. It becomes the enemy. Like, you're taking away the things that I enjoy. When they're in middle school, high school, that's part of that age and that angst and that social behavior. We're not really going to address that. But when it becomes the enemy, school, because we're going to go to school, you have to do something that is not fun, that is unpleasant. You just need to start gently shifting that routine. gently going to bed a little bit earlier, gently, because it's important for our bodies.
Right.
That's the answer. But those routines that are going to be predictable, that are going to, just nicely complement, so it's not a huge change.
Right.
So those are some important things. If at all possible, I think a very valuable thing to do is visit the environment, the school environment. Even if if it's locked down and you can't go in, etc., just driving past it, parking, walking around, talking about what they see, and just exploring those conversation points with the children as they organically come up. Like, oh yeah, look at the garden they have here, or wow, do you see that big slide? I wonder if you're going to enjoy that. Simple things. This is your school. This is what it looks like.
Right.
Closer to the date, I would say a couple of weeks out. Maybe sooner, depending on your child.
Okay.
Maybe as you're driving past in the summer, like, oh, that's the school you're going to go to when summer's over. It's a long time. It's a long time. I think it's an important statement to have. And if they have big feelings about it, you want to reassure them that's normal. Like, oh, it seems like the questions you're asking, maybe you're a little curious and unsure. Do you feel a little bit unsure? That's really normal. Lots of people feel that way when something's going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that way when this happened, and then let it go. Don't make those big feelings any bigger than they are. Address them, acknowledge them, hug, read a book, move on.
Right.
Don't dwell on them, because that just creates this cyclical stress and anxiety for them that isn't going to serve anyone well.
Yeah.
So you want to practice the things that will help them develop independence. So you want them to learn to put their shoes on and off by themselves. And here at Marvelously Made, our school that is the home of the Safe Childhood movement, we ask the parents, do not send tying shoes to school for the children kindergarten and younger. That all of their shoes should be slip-on or Velcro. And it's very beneficial if you're allowing your child to practice putting them on and taking them off. Not again in a militant way, not in a stressful way, just let me show you how that shoe works. Oh, great, look at that, you did it. Oh, right here, you can, it's okay if they put them on the wrong feet, but encourage them by putting a sticker on the inside. So, in the inside of their shoes where they would come together, you can cut a big sticker in half and put one in the left shoe and one in the right shoe in the center, in the middle there. So they can kind of see how to put their shoes together before they put them on. That's just a little pro tip. That's huge. If they have a lunchbox or a snack pail we have here, something like that, practicing using it. Put their food in it, show them how it works. Go on a picnic with them where they get to put their shoes on, and let's take your snack pail. And I wouldn't call it practice for school. I think that it's just, this is what we're going to do today. Hey, you know what? I believe you can put those shoes on by yourself. Let me know if you need help. And then just help them. Again, any language that's, you have to do this in order to go to school, is really counterproductive for children.
Right.
It puts a lot of stress on them, a lot of pressure. So the better thing to do is to give them the opportunity, tell them you believe in them, and then just support through that. And if for some reason they're struggling with any of these, self-help skills, hanging up their own coat, putting their backpack away, or their tote that they take to school, putting their lunch in their tote, those kinds of things, then you just let the teachers know they're going to need a little more support for a little bit longer.
Yeah,
Big deal.
and there are always adults at any school that are there to help. But what we're saying is practice these things because it's going to give them confidence.
Absolutely. I can do that, but don't expect that they have to do it or that they need to do it to have a good time at school.
Right.
So just a gentle, but those are ways that you incorporate into your day that can make that transition smoother. But yeah, there are always adults, and I promise you, the teachers expect to help the children with those things.
Right.
We understand that, you're sharing your child with someone a lot of times for the first time, even through kindergarten and sometimes into first grade. People are, before they, are in putting their children into school situations, and you want them to be able to take care of things because you feel like you're not going to be there to do it for them.
Right.
And that's not the case. There are people there to help, and it is no big deal. And so,
right.
Yeah, just gentle ways.
Let's talk about saying goodbye.
Yeah, so saying goodbye to them. I think developing that kind of ritual beforehand of when you do tell them goodbye, maybe when you take them to church or they go to grandma's house or, whatever that might be. It's like, I've heard them called I love you rituals, just whatever that is. High five, kiss on the head, big hug, and then send them on their way. And just create a ritual that you start doing where they're getting used to this is how it feels when we say goodbye.
Right.
This is what that looks like. Now, there are some things to really be cautious of. And what I share with our community here is to really think about whose needs are being met. One year I actually, when I was teaching, I had a parent in the classroom, and it was the dad had a really hard time with their children leaving. And he actually would say to them as he was dropping them off in the classroom, like, are you sure you want to go? Do you want to stay with me? And he would even go as far as to say, like, you could stay with me and we could go to the bakery and get donuts, which is crazy. I mean, to say that to your child when they're happily separating makes them uneasy and makes them start questioning if they're safe here. Is this a good place you're leaving me?
Right.
When parents are nervous about it, that's the message. And the child was absolutely staying at school, didn't want to go, but that can definitely go another way.
Right.
And I absolutely caution against. So you want a positive goodbye ritual, and the whose needs are being met. If you're struggling, that's understandable, but you need to leave if they're okay, because they will get used to that and be confident. And then when you see them again, saying to them, oh, I missed you, I'm so happy to see you, and that's the perfect connection. But dwelling on the fact that you're going to miss them, or dragging it out because it's hard for you to say goodbye.
Yeah, I was going to ask that too, like how long should the goodbye ritual be? Because I've seen some that do last a really long time, and once you start it that way, it seems like they always need it to be that long. And
right. And I think that, again, the temperament of the child, I'm always going to go back to that, and the age and stage of development. Sometimes they do need a little extra time. But you want to always be aware that the goal is to help them narrow that time down and be able to separate from you. So it's hard to say this is how long it should take. I will tell you, if your child is having a hard time, one thing I always recommend is, come early, walk around with them. We have little free libraries outside of our building. So I'll encourage the parents to come a little bit early, pick a book out of the library, sit on a bench and read it, bring a book from home, make that part of your good morning ritual. And I know how hard that is to come early, barely, you're coming in hot every morning. I know that. I tend to have that challenge myself. And so you think I can't do that any earlier. So I get that. But if that's an option for you, if they're having a hard time separating, pay it forward. You want to fill that cup before it's time to walk into the school. So if any way possible, get there early, sit in the car, read a book, sing some songs together, and now it's time to go. If you can avoid sitting in the car, I would get out of the car is ideal, and get closer to the building with things like reading them a story or singing a song while you wait. And, then get out of sight when they're ready for you to do that.
Right.
So always, I think, getting ahead of that is good. And then, if you feel like your child is going to be having a hard time, you need to be close to the phone. You need to be ready to pick them up. And when it's pickup time, you need to be there early, and you definitely need to be there on time. Because if your child is struggling, the teacher hopefully is going to connect you with your child as soon as possible when it's time to go home. And you want to be there because that builds trust. You are coming back. I don't have to wait for you. I see all these other parents coming to pick their children up, and I don't know where my parent is. So it's really important that you are early, or at least on time, because that can start a pattern of discomfort and worry for the children.
Can we just talk a little bit about what not to say when you pick them up?
Sure. So I think, when you pick them up, definitely don't ask if they were good. Children are good. They're made good. They want to do good things. They want to make good choices. But growing up is about, these ages and stages are about developing social and emotional competencies. And usually when we're asking children if they were good, what we mean is, did you have any upset feelings, any conflict with anybody? Did anything happen that made you say stop, or that, you know, did anything happen that made you, you know, grab something from another child because you had it first? So have you been good? Did you, you know, were you a good boy? Were you a good girl today? Has no place in picking your children up at the end of the day, or really any other time. I mean, you know, when you think about it, if an adult came to you first thing when you got home and said, were you good today? I mean, that's silly. And yet they're children. I understand this. But the difference is that's not the measure of their day. And it shouldn't be if they had times of upset and times of frustration. That's not the point. It should be about connection. I'm so happy to see you. You need to be fully present. No cell phones. No cell phones when you're dropping them off, and no cell phones when you're picking them up. 0 cell phones, especially for the first, you know, even until you get home. You know, you get back in the car, you're connecting, you're listening. You know, it's not, do not bring the cell phones into those moments of reunion. And, you know, get down on their level. I'm so happy to see you, and I can't wait to hear about your day. You can ask them things like, did you read a story today? I don't suggest you ask any of those questions right when you reconnect with them. You just reconnect. Yeah. I'm so happy to see you. You know, wow, let's grab your things. And then they'll start talking to you in their time. We want to know what the children have done because we've been gone. We've invested so much in the decision that we've made for them, emotionally, possibly financially, you know, schedules we've changed, jobs we've altered. So we want to know what they did when they were gone. But it will unfold. You know, you will either have the child who never tells you anything, but you will see it in their play. You will have the child that won't tell you anything until bath time and bedtime, and things will start to unfold. Breathe and underreact with whatever they are telling you that might concern you. The important thing is that they're home and they're happy and everything is good. And then if you have questions when they go to bed, you email the teacher. And, you know, don't have those conversations at the door or drop off in the morning. When you're dropping them off, that's not the time for a mini conference with the teacher. It might be the time to say, Grandma's going to pick them up today, but it's not the time to say, yesterday when they came home, they said that they had an argument in the sand pit with so-and-so, what happened? That's not a drop-off time conversation. The children overhear you. It's confusing. The teachers don't have time to adequately answer your question, but they want to, and they want to do it justice. So
right. And let me just add too, just like you're not asking the child if they were good, you're not asking the teacher, were they good?
Absolutely.
In front of them. Yeah.
Never.
Just assume that if there's a reason that the teacher needs to talk to you, they will do that through an email or a call later, not in front of the child.
Not in front of the child.
And if you're in a different school that is not ours, and a teacher tries to tell you in front of your child about their day, I would stop them and say, you know what, can you call me later?
Yes, absolutely.
Or send me, you know what, can you send that to me in an email?
That is so important. And, you know, of course, I know that firsthand, too. And I've shared that story of my son being picked up from kindergarten and his teacher coming up to me and saying, he embarrassed me so badly today. And my child is standing there and he's 5 and he's, you know, so sweet. And, you know, and I looked at her. First, I looked at him and thought, this is not about him. And I looked at her and I said, I'm sorry. What are you talking about? Which I should have said what you said. You know what? But of course, that was really bold, and it was hard to just shut that down. And I kind of looked at her confused, and I said, what are you talking about? Well, someone was in the classroom observing, and she was reading a story, and he said, this story is boring. Well, it must have been boring to him, and that's okay. But it's not about her feelings, you know, and to put a child in that position, you know, is usually about the adults. So we want to be sure that we never do that. And I think that advice you just gave, if a teacher is the one who brings that to you, your job is to advocate reasonably and, you know, for your child. You want to know what's going on at school, but they're right there and they misinterpret that.
Right.
And also it's not appropriate to, you know, to hurt their self-image and confuse them in those ways.
Right. And it takes away from the connecting after a long day.
And that's the most important thing.
Right.
You know, I'm so happy to see you, and going from there. So be on time at pickup time and greet them with that reconnection that's completely present, and that is, I'm so happy to see you. I can't wait to hear about your day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Beautiful things.
Yeah. Any tips for parents specific to our school?
Yes, so we do some things that maybe will help educators and give you some ideas as well. We all know that there are, different parameters that we have to operate within and time constraints. And sometimes you don't know who's in your class until it's posted. There's that big ritual that can be very exciting. And I think it should be a tradition when you go up to the elementary school and they post on and I don't even know, do they send an email now? But it used to be
posted on the door.
Oh, good, because there's an old school thing about that, right? Like it's posted on the door and you can't wait to get your time to get up to the door and see who your teacher's in and which friends are in your class. That's a fun ritual. Like every time you do that, you go get a snow cone afterwards, or every time you do that, then you go buy your school supplies, or, whatever you can create as a really happy ritual for finding out whose class you're in. We do that a little bit differently here in that there are a couple of things that we do, and hopefully, like I said, these will help some things. So first, you should check the website, the school's website, to see if there are photos of the teachers. It's always nice to actually see the teacher. Anybody, it's just nice to put a face to that name. And if there is, share that with your child. And, it might be that the second grade team has a picture on the website and you don't know which one of those teachers is going to be your child's teacher yet, but these are some of the faces you're going to see. And that's always a nice thing. One thing we do is we meet about 2.5 weeks before school starts, and we kick off our year with a meeting then where the teachers are given the class list, that we take a picture of the team. They write notes to each of the children, welcoming them to the year, a little personal note, and then we get pictures printed and we put it inside the card of their teaching team. And our teachers do teach in teams, so they're not in an isolated classroom alone. So that's why it'll have 4 to 6 or 7 teachers on the team, depending. And so the note goes in there, and on that photo, we do add the teachers' names by them so they know which one's which. And then that goes in the mail and the child gets it. We try to time that so it's not too far out from school starting. We want them to get it about a week before. So our goal is that they get it the Friday before they come visit the school, which is they visit the Friday before school starts. So that's one way. We do have a new parent coffee for new families, no matter the age of the child. We have a new parent coffee, and that's when we go over all of the information you need to know about the routines, the drop off, the nitty gritty details of where everything is. And so the parents are, have a handle on that. Do what you can to find out that information for your school. There is a lot of stuff on websites. Then, like I said, go visit the school beforehand. We offer the play date, which I mentioned was this morning. And so the children, and it's one child and one parent. And those decisions feel hard, but the reality is these steps are about transitioning the children in the most positive way. And the families used to come, and then we found they were bringing aunts and uncles and neighbors, and it was just chaos. And the goal, you always have to think in education, like what's the goal? To build their social and emotional ability to make this transition in the healthiest way possible.
Right.
So we have one child, the new child, even if they have siblings that have been there, the newest child, if it's their first time at school, they come with one parent, one adult, and they have a play day. It's just an hour. It's just we also have a group me that will get started for new parents, and we have a group of parents who welcome them in. So it's always nice if you can create a mentoring type program to just welcome families in, so they feel connected right away. I think that's a great thing to be able to do. We do have that visiting day where everybody comes the Friday before school starts. And then when it's time to say goodbye, we want to do that when the children are ready for that. And as soon as they are, we do allow the children's parents to come into the classroom if that's what the child needs. And we talk very specifically about how that should look and etc. And then we have what we call it the boohoo woohoo time. So basically it's a time where anybody who wants to can go gather at the coffee shop that we just happen to have this sweet coffee shop right next door to us. But when we didn't, in our previous location, we held it in in a room that was connected to the school, but the children couldn't see. So, try to make that work for you. A place where the parents can go to hang out, and either they're boo-hooing because they're worried about their child and it's the first time they've had this separation, and we all know how it feels to share that piece of your heart. And, or they're just so excited that summer's here and they couldn't wait, and their children have been begging to go back to school all year long, all summer long, and so they're just woohooing it up.
Yeah.
So we do both, and everybody goes who wants to, and then as the director of the school, I am checking on all the children, and I am going over when I can. It takes a little while because we're checking on the children, but then I go check in with them and let them know and assure them, the teachers, the school. I really encourage you to assure those parents that if their child is not consolable in a reasonable amount of time, that you are going to call them and you expect them to come, because we are building trust that your needs are going to be met, and that, and then you can make a plan with the teacher after that. In that moment, it's, you needed me, you're young, you needed me, and I'm here. And we're going to have a much more successful year if we react to those feelings in that way. So be prepared to pick them up. And also, I think a really important thing is we'll have these kiddos who come in every year and they're just happy to be here, and they just transition. And this can be whether they're transitioning brand new to school, or whether they're returning and they're in a new environment, or just their personalities, but they get here, and these children, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're so happy the first couple of weeks, and you're just like, woohoo, we're home free. This was no big deal. And then about week 3, they start complaining, they start not wanting to come. And it's not that they don't enjoy school, and it's not that it's not a good thing. It's that they're beginning to realize this is going to happen every day.
Yeah.
This is my routine now.
Right.
I remember those pajama days, and that was really nice. And I'm cozy here, and I want to read a book. And so expect that. Choose your battles when you're getting ready for school. Hopefully your child's in an environment where it doesn't matter if they show up in their pajamas. It doesn't matter if they brush their hair. The important thing is that they are smoothly coming into the classroom, and I promise the day will come when they brush their hair again.
Right.
It really does. So hopefully you're in an environment where you can attend to their emotional needs, but know that when you hit that speed bump, for those of you who will, it's perfectly normal for some children to do that. So, and you just, we are going to go to school. Yeah, it is every day. Change can be a little bit hard, can't it?
Right.
In 4 sleeps, it's going to be an at-home day, but it's a school day, and I know how much you love to, listen to stories, or what it is that that they enjoy.
Right. I think that these are great tips, and I think that if you take these tips to heart and your child is still struggling, to reach out to the teachers.
Absolutely.
To make a plan.
And no, I think, one thing that we didn't talk about that I think is important too, and I think this is more a parent thing, is for so many parents, one of the big reasons we're sending our children to school is to develop those social skills. And that's important. And to develop these social skills in a group, you need to be in a group. And you need to be in a group where those social skills are being learned in a positive way. But we want them to make friends. And so we talk about that a lot. Mm-hmm. You're going to go to school and you're going to make friends. And then the children don't really make what is recognized as friends in the way the adult lens, perceives that and accepts that. In other words, young children, especially children, kindergarten and younger, a lot of them, there are so many stages of social play. And, one is playing beside one another. Then you start kind of interacting with one another. It's a process before you're actually engaged in cooperative play. And everybody's their friend usually. Now, they get to determine that. We don't get to determine that. We don't say we're all friends here, because they might not be. Mm-mm. But for them, they might come home and say, I played with my friend. Well, what's their name? I don't know. They don't know.
Right.
And they don't care.
And that's okay.
And that is okay. So expect it. That, everybody's their friend. I played with my friend. Nobody's my friend. But it doesn't mean they don't have any friends. And if your child isn't making what you understand to be friends, don't panic. That doesn't mean they're not being successful and having a great experience at school, but they need their own time for that to unfold.
Right.
And expecting that they're going to have, a best friend when they're 4 or 5 isn't really an appropriate expectation for all children. So I think parents have a heads up about that.
Yeah.
And, don't make it all about that. What is going to school about for children? You're going to school because there are going to be really interesting things to explore, and you're going to get to listen to stories, and there will be other children there to play with. There will be teachers who love you and care about you, and we trust them. You're sending that message just non-verbally. There is so much trust, and we're communicating with them, and all those things make that transition smoother. But don't be alarmed if they don't have friends, or everyone's their friend, or they don't know their friend's name, because that is perfectly appropriate.
And I think you want your child to have a friend so much. That's about your needs, not theirs. So,
and it's well intended, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, of course you want them to have a friend.
Yeah.
And then you'll have some that do make, even at young ages, like, that is my friend, and that's the only person I want to play with, and I'm going to dress like they are, and all the things, that happens as well. But for the most part, expect that if your child is, has those other conversations with you, it's okay, it's good. You can always email the teacher and say, tell me about what they do at school.
Right.
And teachers, be sure that you send those first week emails, and that you make a time in the fall to connect with the parents and let them know how their child's adjusted to school. That's just important, and that's a good way to lay the foundation for open communication, and that we're on the child's team, all of us together.
So happy back to school.
Yay.
So that wraps it up for today's episode. Like, share, subscribe.
All the things. YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
savechildhood.org for information about saving childhood, and also our conference coming up in November. Such a great time of learning deep and learning good ways to honor development. And you can check out our 14 tenets, the things that we can all do, and we will save childhood for a generation. And that's generational work. It will just keep going and going.
Sure is.
So thanks for listening. Thanks for joining
being here.
Save Childhood movement. Yeah.
We'll see you next time.
All right. Have a great day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. To learn more and join the movement, go to savechildhood.org.